Hello, I'm your host, Skeptical Scott.
And I'm today's guest, Unquestionable Calvin.
It's funny you say that. The heathen, there and back again. Get ready to question everything. What do you believe? Wait, Calvin, does that intro sound familiar? Hey, let me try that again, okay? Join us as we drop the supernatural, embrace the rational, and believe in as many true things as possible. Today we have an interview with another Michigander, someone I found through the power of TikTok, as well as his previous podcast. You may occasionally find our guest at a park with an invitation to ask an atheist. Perhaps you'll spot his car driving around town with the bumper sticker, "I caught the woke mind virus, and all I got was empathy and critical thinking skills." Please welcome to the show, the musical, the logical, the unquestionable CalvinSmith.
Thank you. Please.
What do you think, Cal? Is there anything to correct there? Is that about right?
No, that was all pretty spot on.
Well, that's good. Hey, and I do love that bumper sticker. I mean, what's the image on that bumper sticker?
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Like, I promote stuff like on TikTok all the time, and I was offered this funny little bumper sticker. It's just like a little frog. I think he's holding just like a cup of coffee or something.
He's cool, man. I love it. So
yeah, I love it. I've already gotten some reactions on the road from it. I can see people in my rear view mirror kind of throwing their hands up and stuff.
Well, I'm going to have to go get that one because I really do love it. And I suppose we each have our personal bumper stickers on our skin too. Congrats on the new tattoo.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, it's like a new old tattoo. It's like this tattoo I've had for like 7 or 8 years now, and it's been unfinished for that long. So, wow. Yeah, finally getting back to work on it. I got one more session left on it.
Wow. So it's like chapter 2, 7 years later. So
I saw my tattoo artist and was like, "What the heck are you doing here?"
Well, let's go ahead and just get rolling. Why the unquestionable? Why do you call yourself that?
Yeah, I guess it kind of the origins. Like, first and foremost is that I used to do a podcast, Unquestionable with CalvinSmith. I talked to people about any really deeply held belief that they had. I talked to people who believed in ghosts, and people who believed they were channeling extraterrestrial, species from other planets or UFOs. People who believed in gods or the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot hunters. Mm-hmm. I just always had this kind of affinity for wanting to talk about the unknown. The unknown fascinates me, and I just love talking about it, even if it's just kind of theorizing, throwing some ideas back and forth. Got the idea to start a podcast after I started deconstructing my religious beliefs to kind of get a better handle on, these conspiracy theories I was believing. And I came up with the name Unquestionable, honestly, because it seemed like all the domain names were already taken.
That's hilarious. Well, when I hear Unquestionable, it's almost like someone who totally is, I believe in this, and so you can't question me about it. So when I first heard Unquestionable, that's what I thought of. But then I thought about how there's a lot of things that you and I grew up expecting that we're not allowed to question.
Exactly. That's kind of what it comes down to, is that it's not about, not being able to question those things. It's about questioning the things that you're not necessarily allowed to talk about. So it's like,
yes,
God existing, that's unquestionable. God exists in my, family and friends' eyes, I guess. Or, I have family members who are like, yes, it is unquestionable that Hurricane Katrina was a false flag operation created by the Obama administration, right. Whatever it may be,
it's amazing, isn't it? And just when you think we're turning the corner on our critical thinking, it just goes, it snowballs, man. I just can't believe it. Humans are weird species sometimes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And so I guess that really does open up, your relationship to religion growing up. And would you say, I think you just kind of admitted that you've been a conspiracy theorist yourself. So tell us a little bit about that, the upbringing, and then also what makes you think humans are the way they are when it comes to that. I mean, that's a big question, but go for it.
It is a big question. I'll try to do my best. So my family, although they are religious, a lot, Baptist is, the primary denomination in my family. Both my older sisters were baptized. I was not, and neither was my younger brother. We're just heathens, I guess. So yeah, my family's always been pretty religious, although it's honestly been on the back burner a lot of my life. It's always a lot of, I call it finger waving, like, hey, watch what you're doing. Jesus is still watching. Still, if you talk bad about God, you might get a little smack on your mouth or something. My family really gravitated towards the supernatural or the paranormal aspect of religious ideology. So I have a lot of indigenous, Cherokee family members, some family members that live on reservations and such. And a lot of, indigenous conspiracy theories, these supernatural ideas, like the Wendigo and the Wolfman or whatever, Mothman, these types of supernatural beings, not necessarily gods, the cryptids, I guess you could say. They exist, right? Ghosts exist. They're in this house. I can feel them. That was very much indoctrinated into me at a very young age. Yeah, it's just I've always gravitated towards aliens and, the Loch Ness Monster and, these quite literally monsters. That was always cool to me. I wanted it to be true. Yeah. And I would find what I thought was good evidence for these things, like, aliens or Bigfoot or whatever, and try to defend it. One of my favorite conspiracy theories when I was kind of in that hole was, it's really tough to pick between me believing that the earth was hollow at one point. There was an ancient civilization living inside the earth, yada, yada, or the lost ancient high technology conspiracy theory where building the pyramids, they use these whatever technology they used to build them. I would defend these things. And it just kind of evolved over the years, and I got deeper and deeper and started believing in crazier and crazier things. I developed a blog page where I would write down things about alien species that I couldn't even prove exist.
You were enthralled. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And it wasn't until I started to realize that a lot of these beliefs did turn towards back the Bible. Flat Earth. Genesis advocates for a flat Earth, and a giant global flood that wiped out the ancient civilization. Noah's flood. A lot of the Dead Sea Scrolls, a lot of them pointing back towards the Bible. So I figured, what better way to get a better hold on my religious beliefs and learn more about these conspiracy theories than to just open up the Bible and read it and see what's going on in there, because I'd never done that.
Yeah. So would you say your posture towards that was, let's find out some more?
Correct. To be honest, didn't have high hopes when I first, even when I first opened the Bible, is kind of I kind of was leaning more on the theistic side of agnosticism. I kind of was there more than likely is a God, but I don't have high hopes for this book here. Read the book. By the end of it, I was I don't know if this God exists, but if he does, he's kind of a jerk.
That's very polite. Hey, just so you know, you can cuss, it really is okay. But anyway.
That's the nicest word I could use. Regardless of whether I thought this God existed or not, I just didn't like the things that he was doing, advocating for, and letting happen. Then I started to reflect more on the conspiracy theories that were corroborated by the Bible, breaking those down, which eventually led me back to reading the Bible a second time. But this time I was I'm going to read every single word on every single page. I'm going to annotate it. I have a whole index on the inside of my Bible now of color tabs. Did that. And by the New Testament, I was there's just no fucking way that this is real.
Right. I've seen all those highlighted. You have different colors for different things for those sticky notes, don't you?
I have probably 10 or 12 different colors, and each color stands for a different thing. Everything from slavery to a genocide happening to subjugation of women or whatever it may be. When I very first started deconstructing my religious beliefs, a lot of people told me that all you need to do is read the Bible and you will be convinced. So that's exactly what I did. Needless to say, to quote Andrew Seidel, the road to atheism is littered with Bibles that have been read from cover to cover. But regardless of my knowledge of the Bible, I still get Christians to this day that say that I didn't actually read the Bible. That's why I'm not convinced and why I'm spreading false information.
which is exactly why with every Bible video I do where I am reading from the Bible, I give the chapter and the verse, and then I show the chapter and verse and read from it on camera. And they will still tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. It's dishonest and it's rude, but besides the point, what I'm trying to get across here is that people can read the Bible and not be convinced of it. People can read the Quran and not be convinced of it. People can read the Bhagavad Gita and not be convinced of it. And I've read all three, and I can say with pretty good certainty that these gods more than likely don't exist, and you have nothing to worry about.
I like the idea that there were giants, the Nephilim.
I was just talking to someone on TikTok actually about this, about the whole giants thing. It's like, what would constitute as a giant? You know, like, I mean, what's that guy's name? Like Robert Wadlow? Wasn't he like 8 or 9 foot tall? Would he not be considered a giant?
Maybe.
I mean, Andre the Giant.
You know, when I push back, my God is for life. You know, I'm pro-life, and you know, the common pushback from people like us would be, yeah, he really did believe in life. You know, if at first you don't succeed, drown it, right? But somebody recently said, well, it's because they were all giants. I'm like, where did you pull that from? You know,
exactly.
Anyway,
like, what Bible verse is that?
Right. So, haven't we all been some sort of conspiracy theorist at some point? I mean, in some ways, I do think people don't like this, but I do believe that a lot of religious people are conspiracy minded because the book is a conspiracy in a lot of ways, right? We're kind of propping this whole thing up. What do you think makes humans so susceptible to that? And what do you believe the antidote would be to that?
Well, I think just us as humans, you know, we want to know things. We want to know how the world works. We want to know how space works and, you know, just reality in general. We want to have answers to things. And that was what I realized after self-reflection. That is what I wanted. I just wanted some answers. Right. What are those things that are flying in the sky that no one's able to identify? Are those actually extraterrestrial, or are they some government thing? Is it just a bird? Mm-hmm. You know, so like I wanted answers to these things. So I think it comes down evolutionarily, like we want to know what's going on. You know, if there's a rustle in the bush behind me, yeah, I could run away from it. The best bet, if you know there's a rustle in the bush, is run away from it because you don't know what is in that bush. But if you know what's in that bush, you know, you can you know whether it's a tiger or whether it's just, you know, a mouse scurrying around in the bush, and you know whether you need to run away. Having answers to these things, you know, kind of helps out with that existential dread. You know, I kind of, you know, struggle with that sometimes, you know, just knowing like, hey, it's lights out, you know, who knows, any day I could just like go to sleep, not wake up again. Just that's it. No more, you know, and so there's a little bit of dealing with that. Some people struggle to accept that, and they need to believe in something to make themselves feel better about their own finite existence, rather than accepting the reality that, you know, you got to make the best of the one life that we know that we have. So yeah, I think it comes down like evolutionarily to, you know, we just want answers to things, and we're willing to make up the answers if it makes us feel comfortable.
This is a big misconception that a lot of theists believe. They believe that faith is synonymous with trust, and by equating those two things that are not equal, they say that atheists do have faith in some things, like in scientists, for example. They'll say things like, you trust science, so you have faith in science, or you have faith in scientists. But here is the big difference between trust and faith, is that trust is based off of good reason and evidence to believe in that thing. Faith is not based off of good reason and evidence. It's belief without good reason or evidence. So I don't have faith in evolutionary biologists, because evolutionary biologists have the evidence to back up the things that they're saying. So I trust them because they have the evidence to back it up. You have faith in the Bible or God because there is no evidence of those things, but you want them to be true. You're scared for them not to be true, so you have faith that they're true. So the main takeaway here is that faith is not synonymous with trust. They are not the same thing. They don't work together. It's not how it works. So now I ask you, do you think that it is more reasonable to believe in things off of faith, or because you trust people who have a lot of evidence to back up those things that they're saying?
This kind of brings us to, as far as what I believe the antidote to some of that is, it's asking really good questions. And it blows my mind that people don't ask more questions, that people just kind of take the pill and accept it. They're comforted by it almost. So I guess where I want to go now is the Ask an Atheist and what you've learned. Well, first describe what it is. Talk a little bit about maybe what you've learned from Anthony Magnabosco on how that can be a productive conversation.
Street epistemology is like kind of my go-to way of talking to people when I don't want to get all debatey with someone.
Right.
Street epistemology, for anyone who may not know, is basically having a cordial conversation about a deeply held belief that can end with, hey, have a great day. It basically ends with a handshake. It's not a debate. It's not a, preaching your beliefs. It's just kind of explaining your beliefs and maybe running through some thought experiments. That's really all street epistemology is. It's a way to have a conversation. And I use that, and Anthony Magnabosco is actually a big, as you mentioned, he's a big user of street epistemology. I interviewed him on my podcast once upon a time. He's a really great guy.
That was a great episode.
Yeah, it's super informative. Everyone should go check that episode out. Just go check out Anthony Magnabosco in general. He's, at the moment, I think he's the executive director of Street Epistemology International. But anyways, he basically would just get like a camera and go stand on a street corner or a busy park and just let people walk by and say, hey, what the heck are you doing here? You're just kind of standing here. And he'd say, oh, well, I'm here to talk about God if you want, and I thought that was so interesting that some people are, willing to just on their daily morning walks, just stop and have this like super in-depth conversation. And it's so interesting because they're caught off guard and they weren't expecting to have this conversation. So it's just really interesting to kind of see the off guard mentality and thought process going on. I took that page away and started working with the Secular Alliance of Michigan, which is a secular nonprofit here in Southeast Michigan, which you are familiar with.
I sure am. I've got to go ahead and just, whether you know it or not, that's one of the primary reasons I joined SAM was just your connection with it.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. I'm really glad to hear it. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, they're a great organization. They're, an umbrella under Michigan Atheists. Really great organizations. I don't do a whole lot with them anymore just because, my schedule has been filled up with life stuff. So I can't really work with them specifically anymore, but I still kind of speak on their behalf.
Right.
And I worked with Sam to create this sign that just says Ask an Atheist on it. I'm actually looking at it right now. It says Ask an Atheist on it. On the bottom it says, what do you believe? It has my emblem on the left side. And it has Sam's emblem on the right side. And it's a pretty big sign. It's like a probably 4x4 sign.
Mm-hmm.
I take this big sign. I go specifically to downtown Plymouth, Michigan, which is a really, really busy foot traffic city. I find the busiest corner there, which is usually right in the downtown area there. Set up there. Lately, I've been setting up my camera, so I actually live stream the whole event. And I just stand there. And just, talk to people on the live stream. And if people want to stop and read the sign and talk to me, they can. They don't have to be on camera. If they don't want, they can step off the camera, be anonymous. Yeah, it's really great. I've had some really awesome conversations with people. I've made some connections with some other people, shown Sam to, some other atheists out there. I've even had people approach me and say, hey, wow, thanks for doing this. Like, it's actually crazy to see this in this representation. So, I've gotten a lot of appreciation for it.
Good. A
lot of pushback as well. But I love doing it. Yeah, I love talking to people about what they believe, why they believe it, because I think, it matters. Beliefs inform actions, and actions have consequences, and those consequences affect everybody. So, at the very least, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here and have a conversation.
All right. So here, we're gonna play this out right now. I'm walking by you, okay? Here I come. Hey, what's this poster about? What is this?
Hey, yeah, I'm here, representing the Secular Alliance of Michigan and myself. Well, I'm here just to talk to some people about what they believe and why they believe it. If you got a couple free minutes on your hand, maybe 5 minutes or so, we can just have a quick little chat.
Wait, so you're one of those atheists, huh? So you don't believe in God?
Correct. I lack a belief in a God, yes. What about yourself?
We have a life group over here, and so it's just kind of strange. I was really inspired at my life group just now, and to see your poster like this, I don't know about it.
Okay, yeah. Well, I just, I'm out here to, just have a conversation. If you're not willing to have that conversation, that's fine. Here's my card. You can take this if you'd like to, shoot me an email later, and we can follow up on something.
So wait. You don't believe in any God at all?
Correct. That is what makes an atheist. Because if I believed in any God, then that wouldn't make me an atheist.
Huh. Well, I don't know about that, because I mean, Jesus is my savior.
Okay. And why do you believe that?
Well, we're all sinners, and God sent his son to save us. How can you not believe that? That was a big sacrifice.
Personally, I don't believe it, because I don't think that there's, I can accept that Jesus died, or, he died even for us. I could accept that. I just don't believe the supernatural things that were going on, and some of the claims in which he made are substantiated with good evidence. But that's exactly why I'm here. So, I mean, if you've got something that could maybe change my mind, or something, that you want some clarification on, we can talk about that.
Well, look around, man. Look at all these trees and stuff. I mean, where do you think this? Do you think this just all appeared out of nothing?
So not necessarily. That's actually a common misconception about atheism, which this is something I talk about frequently, is misconceptions about atheism. So saying that me as an atheist, the only thing that atheism is a statement that I lack a belief in a God. So I could still believe that something created all of this, maybe just not your particular God, or a God in general. It could have been a universe-creating pixie. How do you know that it wasn't a universe-creating pixie, and that it was specifically the God that you are already believing in?
I got to go to lunch, but thanks for this conversation. I'll take one of your cards. All right. Hey, I by the way, I gave 0. That was on the fly. I'm like, let's just try this. So I didn't even tell you I was going to do that.
No, that was literally, I mean, I must have that conversation every single time.
So here's what I'm hearing from you, though, is that very kind of just nonchalant, hey, what do you want to talk about kind of a thing? And where do you want to take the conversation, meaning the person passing by?
Exactly. Like, I'm not there to fight with people. I'm not there to argue with you. I'm not there to tell you you're stupid.
Pixie triggered me, though, I'm kidding.
It's like, you never know. Substitute Pixie with, maybe I think Bigfoot's an interdimensional time traveling universe creating thing, Yeah, so it's just a lot of question asking. It's not enforcing my beliefs. And that's why, like, as far as street epistemology, you more so want to talk about the person that is approaching you's belief. Like, right. I'm fine to
Being
explain,
curious.
What I believe, but I'm not here to talk about me. You walked up to me, so let's talk about you.
And then if they end up asking questions, which I'm sure they do, either as a defense mechanism or whatever, where all of a sudden the spotlight is coming back to you, right? So it's just that ability to simply state, not get emotional. One strategy I like in street epistemology, honestly, what I have to do is I got to practice this more. I've never tried it really, but it's that, hey, on a 1 to 10, like kind of like a percentage game. Can you explain that?
The scale of belief, usually with many of the conversations I have, because it kind of gives me a starting point to go off of. So usually I'll ask someone, on a scale from 0 to 100%, how confident are you that the particular God that you believe in exists? Mm-hmm. And honestly, if they give me anything
110.
in between, right, if they give me 110, then honestly, the conversation really is not going to progress. That tells me right out of the gate, like, wow, this person is doxastically closed. They're not going to be open to changing their mind, given better reason or evidence. They are stuck in their ways. So why, should I entertain this conversation? Should I, still play with it a little bit, see if they're able to wiggle around a little? Maybe they're not necessarily lying about their percentage of belief, but maybe they're overstating it. Maybe they're not 110%. Maybe they're actually 99%, which is good enough for me. If you're at 99%, you still have that 1% that says you are willing to change your mind, and so you're worthy of talking to.
And then I love the follow up of, so what would be the type of evidence you would need to maybe bring that up or higher or lower and that kind of thing. So
exactly. Yeah. What would it take for you to change your mind?
Yeah. And I'm just telling you, the fact that we're even talking about stuff like this is the point. I think it's what happens when the conversation's done. They walk away and they think about, maybe even 2 weeks from now, that was an interesting conversation, huh? You know?
Exactly. And I mean, I've had people, send me emails a week or two later, be like, hey, I got your card, been thinking about it. Just want to say appreciate it. I've gotten supporters that have come by. Like sometimes I get people that'll walk by and just be like, hey, can I just take a card? I'm busy, but I can't just get a card.
I'm curious
I'm
about
like, yeah,
this.
sure.
Yeah.
I'll give them a card. And then I hear from them like a week or two later and they're just, hey, I'm a supporter. I just want to say like, thanks for being out there,
That's
and doing
awesome.
that. Like I've gotten those. I mean, I had a really interesting confrontation I had was I was set up. I actually had a group at one point. I used to do groups where there'd be like 10 or 12 people that would show up and actually help me do street epistemology. I would just give them all cards and send them out around Plymouth and they would go do their own thing. And there was actually this one guy and his mom. His mom came up and she was pissed.
Like, what are you doing here?
Pissed.
Yeah.
Like she was up here like, you guys are shameful. Like what you guys are doing is disrespectful, shitty. You guys are terrible people. Like just calling us every name in the book. And I'm just standing there like with the sign. I didn't say anything to this woman. And this guy comes up and he like grabs his mom, pulls her away, and he comes back and he's like, hey man, listen, first of all, I support you guys. He's like, second of all, I'm so sorry about my mom. Just so you know, she knows where you guys are now. So she's gonna come over here and I just please don't interact with her. Please.
Wow.
And I said, yeah, fine. And I didn't interact with her. I just let her heckle off to the side and she would give me a nasty look every now and then. And that was it, so it was very interesting. I gave that guy a card. And again, he emailed me later and was like, hey, again, sorry for my mom, but thanks.
Well, and I suppose you got to expect that to some extent.
Yeah.
And I
even have people walking by saying Trump 2025. And it's like, what are you talking about Trump? Like, what?
Yeah. Is that what the sign says?
Like, I'm not.
Yeah. And so for our listeners right now that you are theist, you're Christian and you think about, man, this has got to be a really hard thing to do. I guess one thing I would challenge everybody on that is you've likely already been talking to an atheist.
Yes.
You just haven't asked them. You haven't asked an atheist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Actually, it's funny. I recently can't get super into detail about it, but I can kind of let you know something. So recently there was a group of people that are close to me that I speak with pretty much every day. We don't talk about our beliefs or anything. And they found out that I am atheist. And to be honest, it's been different. It's been different since they found out, like the interactions from me, I'm aware of what they believe and it doesn't like, we're not talking about, I can be a normal person and talk to a believer, and about normal things. But it's like, it's the
we've
discrimination.
had a lifetime of that.
Exactly. It's like the discrimination is something that is new to me. Like this, like, wow, you guys are literally treating me different as a person just because I don't believe in that thing that you guys believe in.
When you say treated differently, do you mean like ghosted? Is that what you mean?
It's more so kind of putting walls up, very like lack of eye contact even, and maybe speaking in a lower, more kind of closed off tone, or, kind of being short in conversation, not really wanting to converse with me. It's just kind of, even like the vibes that I feel is different, ever since they found this out.
I've certainly experienced that myself, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners have.
Yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate that.
There are over a dozen resurrections throughout the entire Bible, so what makes Jesus' resurrection so special? The first resurrection takes place in the Old Testament, with nothing to do with Jesus. 1 Kings 17:17. Sometime later, the woman's son became sick. Then she said to Elijah, have you come to point out my sins and kill my son? But Elijah replied, give me your son. So this grown-ass man stretches his whole body over this child and prays to God that he comes back to life, and the life of the child returned and he revived. And then Elisha performs a second resurrection in 2 Kings 4. So the servant took him home and his mother held him on her lap, but around noontime he died. There was no sign of life. He returned to meet Elisha and told him the child is still dead. This is when it gets weird. When Elisha arrived, the child was indeed dead. Then he lay down on the child's body, placing his mouth on the child's mouth, his eyes on the child's eyes, and his hands on the child's hands. And as he stretched out on him, the child's body began to grow warm again.
This time the boy sneezed 7 times and opened his eyes. What, you thought Elisha was done? He's still resurrecting people even in death. 2 Kings 14:20. Then Elisha died and was buried. Groups of Moabite raiders used to invade the land each spring. Once when some Israelites were burying a man, they spied a band of these raiders. So they hastily threw the corpse into the tomb of Elisha and fled. But as soon as the body touched Elisha's bones, the dead man revived and jumped to his feet.
So why do we make such a big deal about Jesus' resurrection when Elisha resurrected 3 separate people on 3 separate occasions, one of which while he was already dead?
Hey, TikTok, that seems to be a primary way these days, right? For you to connect. I mean, that's where you've gained close to 100,000 followers. What do you love about TikTok?
Yeah, I started on TikTok, I think it was 2021, I want to say. We talked about before, I'm a musician. So I actually was, I made friends with a fellow musician. I started hanging out with him and he said, hey man, listen, I started a TikTok and I posted one video of me playing guitar and I've already got 3,000 followers just from one video. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. No way. And I went and looked and I was like, that's crazy. You actually do. So he was like, dude, you should try making a TikTok and posting your music up. And then, you should try that. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I'm stupid. Why didn't I do that before? And so I made a TikTok and I started posting music stuff on there that, it wasn't really catching. To be honest, I had like 10, 12 followers, but I still was getting comments from theists. Yeah, I was still getting comments like people just randomly, like Jesus loves you, like God bless, randomly on these music videos. And at this point, I had already read my Bible, and like I already was like versed in what I just didn't want to do that with TikTok. I didn't want to be that guy on TikTok. And this is like before my podcast and everything. So I just started snapping back. I started replying to these people who were posting stupid stuff on my videos, and one hit like 10,000 views, and then I had like 10,000 followers like the next day, and that's just my thing now. So yeah, I mean, I like TikTok because it's like anyone can get outreach on there. So the reason for stopping my podcast was, I mean, like I did love doing it. I loved the conversations I was having. I was doing it 100% by myself. I have nobody helping me on this. All the, the images and the backgrounds and the scheduling and the editing, exactly. Like you get it. So it's like, it's a lot, plus I'm on like every social media platform on top of doing like I did work for the atheist community of Austin, doing Truth Wanted with them.
Yeah. There are other opportunities and
I've just been kind of everywhere. And I just was like, I gotta cut something somewhere. And it seems like the podcast, although I love doing it, I can do the same thing on TikTok with way less effort and get more engagement, more outreach. So it's like, my podcast is great, but I mean, I only, had probably maybe 5,000 followers of the podcast, like altogether. And, here I am now just because of TikTok, I have probably close to like 150,000 followers across all social medias.
Yeah, it's quicker. It's quicker. It's a little bit more dynamic. And I think the other thing you're really good at is being live. And that is completely different than what I'm doing here. I'm a bit more of a crafter. I take a while on producing and all of that. And I enjoy it. I actually do like the editing process. It just takes a lot of time. But
yes.
I think to kind of tie this together, when I think of things like Ask an Atheist, that's completely live, right? I mean, you are tested on your ability to just go off the cuff. And I think people are drawn to that. So that's part of the TikTok scene as well, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree. My lives, get pretty, especially when I do my Ask an Atheist lives. I mean, I have probably like between 600 and 1,000 people that are sitting in my live watching me do this. Or I can be sitting at home and fire it up if I'm bored for an hour or so and, have a couple hundred people pop in, have some really interesting conversations. And I love having spur of the moment conversations because I think that's the best way to, get to the bottom of things. If you're scheduling like a debate and you're giving people X amount of time to come up with X amount of evidence for their thing, instead of looking at, the bigger picture, maybe being a little bit more spontaneous and thinking about how much are you able to defend your belief without having to research this for this long? You know, like what if a random dude comes up to you on the street and says, prove God, what do you got for him? You know, like that's essentially what I'm out there doing. And I mean, if you think that there's a invisible magic man in the sky who loves you enough to find your car keys, but not enough to, you know, show you he exists, like I just need like something that he's out there.
You sure spend a lot of time being angry at God, Cal. Why are you so angry at him?
Yeah, I know, right?
So this brings up a whole new topic, okay? Which is, what are the comments or questions that, and they may be even on repeat, right, at this point, but that just make you shake your head?
Yeah, I mean, well, you hit the nail right on the head with you know, why do you hate God? Another one is, why are atheists only focused on Christianity? Which I'm not. I talk about Islam and Hinduism, etc. I'm on my page for that exact reason, to shut those people up so that I can say, hey, all of these are stupid. Not just your stupid belief, but yeah, I mean, that one, the whole Jesus died for you. It's like, okay, that's gaslighting. I didn't really ask for that.
Yeah.
The good old, you're just unhappy person. You didn't read the Bible.
A joyless life, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you're just miserable. You know, what is the
sin.
point?
You just want
to be a sinner. Yeah.
But what I see in really the years that I've been listening to not just your shows, but your TikToks and everything, I do see a life of purpose, and I do see a life of meaning and joy and happiness. And yes, you are doing music. In fact, the outro to this show will be some of your music. Does that sound good?
Yeah, man, that sounds like a plan.
Okay, that's great. And so I guess one thing, quote unquote, the church seems to have built in is that sense of belonging or community. So what I want to know is how you have found a sense of community among the nuns.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, it turns back to the Secular Alliance of Michigan Atheists. I mean, my first suggestion to anyone who might be feeling like alone, or that they're, you know, I'm an atheist alone in, you know, my very, you know, heavily religious town. Just know that, you know, you're not alone. There are atheists. Like we talked about earlier, you probably talk to them every single day. The clerk at 7-Eleven, you know, you don't, maybe they're atheists and they have the same beliefs that you, or non-belief that you do. You know, my suggestion would just be to reach out to people, you know, reach out and try to find a community that's good for you. I mean, I was struggling because again, you know, atheist, and was struggling to find someone who had similar beliefs to me, to, you know, just be a friend, you know, and not talk about God all the time. Because I have some pretty close friends, but they are pretty religious and they don't like what I do, you know, and they're honest about it. And I'm like, I think that you believe in stupid stuff, but you don't, you know, we don't talk about it.
Can we go grab a beer or something? Can we just
exactly
hang out?
But I wanted that, you know, community of people that didn't believe in that stuff, but also could still be, you know, a friend of mine. So I found the Secular Alliance of Michigan, and teamed up with them. And I mean, I met some amazing people. I've, you know, found you through it. And if you don't have a community, or you don't think that there's a community around you, one, there is, I promise. And two, make one. Make a community,
exactly,
you know, make a Facebook group and start inviting people. Make a TikTok page and, you know, start posting videos and tagging your area and see if people respond to it. You know, you don't have to, you know, think that you're alone, because you're not. You know, there's plenty of people out there that don't believe in fairy tales. And that's the thing, is that we've just been, you know, atheists have been kind of pushed down, like we're the weirdos for not believing in the man in the sky. And we just need to kind of uplift each other.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Hey, is there anything else you want our listeners to know, Calvin?
You know, I don't think so, other than everyone needs to share this podcast as much as possible. If you're listening to this and you haven't shared it, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, legitimately, like, I want you to explain yourself right now.
Well, these days, you know, I'm somewhat anonymous myself, right? Because there is a price to pay for sharing stuff like this, listeners. And I know that for some of you, it's not a big cost, but for others it would be. But I'm telling you, with each passing day, I'm ready to just be like, oh, well.
Exactly. And I mean, that's kind of where I'm at, is that, like, I'm pretty firm in what I believe and what I don't believe. And yeah, I'm open. I'm my true self, you know, and I'm willing to defend my true self for the sake of my own well-being.
Well, and the more we put our walls down, Calvin, the more others feel like, oh, good, I'm not the only one and I can too, right?
Exactly.
Fear drives a lot of that. So, hey, I'll just say thank you. Hey, check the show notes, everybody. You'll see that link to the Anthony Magnabosco. I can't believe I know how to say it now, right? To that particular episode, as well as everything else that Calvin's doing, TikTok, etc., and his music. So thank you for joining us today, Calvin.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Skeptical Scott. I appreciate you so much. And thanks for having me on.
And I'm trying to remember the tagline you would have at the end of your episode.
What do you believe? And why do you believe it? I'll see you around.
There's the core question. All right, great. Peace out.
Peace out.
Sometimes happy is a misunderstanding. In sickness and health and held by the heartstrings. All the tears that were shed, your love for me instead. I wish the pain would end. My walls are caving in. I can't help but feel like I'm lost in an empty room. All that's missing here is you. The air is so still, I can feel my own heartbeat.
Thanks for listening to Funny You Say That. You can find all of our episodes, show notes, and social media channels at skepticalscott.com. Our intro music was created by my friend Jimmy Dells. The music you're hearing right now is from our guest CalvinSmith. Feedback, questions, email me at heyskepticalscott@gmail.com. You can catch our episodes on the first and third Friday each month. And next time, hey, it will be on Good Friday. It's a Good Friday for stinky feet. Wait, what? You'll see. Drop the supernatural, embrace the rational, and believe in as many true things as possible. Cheers.